We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a podcast where we dive deep into the world of songwriting and music. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and today's episode is a truly special one for me personally, as we're welcoming some of my musical heroes to this very podcast. That's right, today we have Conor Oberst and Nate Walcott from the legendary Bright Eyes joining us. Conor's on the pod for the second time, and it is Nate's first appearance, which makes this episode all the more exciting. Bright Eyes, as many of you might know, have been a cornerstone of the indie folk scene for over 20 years now. And today they're releasing their brand new studio record titled 5 Dice, All Threes. It's another stunning addition to their incredible catalogue, and what's amazing is how this record seems to encapsulate the essence of their past albums while introducing fresh ideas. Now, in today's episode, we chat with Conor and Nate about 5 Dice All Threes and what it's like putting out music after 2 decades in the industry. We dive into the songwriting process, how they approach their work after so many years, and how they managed to capture the essence of multiple Bright Eyes records within just this one. We also get into the production side, talking about their experience of self-producing the album and what they see as their biggest triumph in the process. And of course, we find out when we can expect to see them back in Australia to play some of these new songs live. Now, we want to give a huge thank you to Jaja for her help with today's episode and remind everyone to go out and buy 5 Dice All Threes. We've put all the links in today's show notes on where you can purchase it. And as always, our website and social links are there too. So make sure you're following us to stay up to date with everything we've got coming up. Now let's get into it. Here is our conversation with Conor Oberst and Nate Walcott from Bright Eyes.
It's hard now to imagine it. The currency was all counterfeit. Diana's face was scattered to the mob.
Please welcome back to This Song Is Yours, Conor Oberst and Nate Walcott from Bright Eyes. Gentlemen, hello. How are we?
Hey, Simon.
Hi, how's it going?
Doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Doing well.
Doing all right.
Doing all right. That's very good to hear. Nate, welcome to the podcast for the first time. Conor, welcome back. I'm very super excited. I had the pleasure of speaking, Conor, with yourself late last year, just before you guys came out to Australia. And at the tail end of that interview, we kind of discussed whether there was new music coming at that time. And I think there was a little bit of a tease, but I really wasn't expecting that we would have a brand new Bright Eyes album out this quickly. So firstly, congratulations on this brand new record, 5 Dice All Threes. How are you guys feeling with it coming out?
We're excited. I think, yeah, it's kind of all sort of ramping up, you know, when you get on the roller coaster and it's like, and then, you know, so we're at the part right now. But, yeah, I think it's going to be cool. Comes out in September. And yeah, we're going to start doing shows and all that type of stuff. So,
of course, for yourselves, you guys have been doing this for a number of years now, over, I want to say, almost 20 years together as a band, and kind of obviously a little bit before that. What is this time like where it is ramping up? You've been living with these songs for a while now. Is there certain parts of the promo, the press, doing things like this that you look forward to? And is there also stuff that you're kind of, I guess, not as into when it comes to having to push the record?
Well, I think that like I have this joke with my friend Jim James from My Morning Jacket, where every time one of us puts out a record, like everyone that like works with you and your labels and management, publicity, et cetera, they're always like, "This is the one. This is gonna be the one." It's going to change your life. Once this one comes out, like everything's going to be different, you know? And of course it never is. But it's kind of funny. So, but no, I mean, I've stopped thinking about it in those terms. I just feel lucky to still be making music like with this guy right here and with Mike Mogus and all our other friends that we make music with. And, you know, honestly, like to be whatever 30 years on and still have a job playing music since I was a kid. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm the luckiest duck in the pond, you know what I mean? So I'm just happy to be here.
Look, we're all very glad that all three of you are here. Nate, I know that in the lead up to this record, I think you've been quoted as saying that this record has a similar spirit to some of the previous records, most likely. Well, when I'm listening to it, and thank you very much, we were very lucky to have a listen to this record before it's come out. There are echoes of Wide Awake, of Cassadaga, even some of Noise Floor, the B-side and compilation record. There were elements of that I kind of heard. I imagine that because you guys have been such a well-oiled machine for over 20 years, that there's always going to be elements that it sounds something like previous work. But is there ever a discussion before you guys go into the studio to be like, oh, remember when we did this record, we want it to sound like that? Or is it just kind of something that organically happens as you find yourself playing in the studio with one another?
Well, I think, I mean, Nate can speak to this maybe a little better than I can as far as some of the more sophisticated musical elements, but I've always thought of our records as kind of being almost a reaction to the record that came before it. So like in this case, the Down in the Weeds Where the World Once Was, you know, it had a, like, thanks to him, it had a very orchestral, like it was lush and whatever, like, I don't know if grandiose is the right term, but whatever. It's like, you know, it was a big thing. And this one, I think, just because we had just done that and we went on tour with like a 14-piece band, it felt good to us to make kind of a more stripped down, you know, I don't want to call it like punk rock because that's maybe an exaggeration as well, but like, you know, just a simpler version of our music. And so I don't know, I always feel like I'm just like I'm ping-ponging back and forth with like my ideas. And Nate, take it away. What would you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Simon, I think you had asked something about something that I had said or about that, about like with this record in particular. Yeah, I mean, I guess when I said that, I think I was referring to a specific element of liveness, of like we were trying to use as much live music as possible, which we don't always do, which seems weird. But this day and age, there's a lot of like technology and mixing and overdubs and replace that. And okay, I'm going to do this again, but make it perfect. We were trying to kind of preserve as much of the, on a lot of songs anyways, not all of them, but a lot of them, as much of the feeling of like, okay, this is, you know, 4 or 5 people in a room playing music together at the same time.
I know that the record was self-produced by the band and by yourselves. Is there, and I want to get onto the songwriting in a minute, but production-wise, is there a production moment you guys are most proud of across this record? I imagine that there's always the stewing over certain lyrical turns or arrangements, but yeah, is there a certain sonic production moment from this record that you're like, yeah, that's the shit. That's our best work?
I mean, we've done a lot of kind of, I think, innovative and like wild stuff over the years on our records. And I don't think this particular record like necessarily showcases that much of that element of our band. But I don't know, for me, I'm going to speak for myself here, but like that, there's that song like Hate, like we were trying to, you know, there's a vocal effect. It's called a time cube, which is like a very old school. It's like from the 60s. It like literally involves a hose that, I don't know, how do you describe a time cube?
It's a hose.
It's
like it's a sort of a really, yeah.
But it's on a lot of like John Lennon's like solo albums. And I was like, we're kind of like, you know, I mean, there's worse people to rip off, obviously. But like, yeah, I felt like, I was like, damn, this does sound like, you know, whatever, Plastic Ono Band, John Lennon. Like, I'm not saying the songs are as good. I'm just saying the production, like that sound is so, that effect is so iconic. And most people, I think, unless you're in a band or a producer, wouldn't be able to differentiate that between that and like some plugin on Pro Tools. But we do, we have those time cubes in our studio, and they're like notoriously like faulty, like they're always breaking. And just to get one to work for like one pass through a song is kind of hard, you know? Mm-hmm. But I like how that's in like the space with just the drums and like the huge kind of that vocal sound. I don't know. That was one thing that felt success in as far as production. If we're just talking about like sonic production wise.
I kind of love that though. I think that even though you said for some people it might not be a noticeable thing, or they might just see it as like a plug-in of some kind, I think it's nice that at least there's the knowledge with yourselves that you know that you've used this tool and that it's made it successfully onto the record. So thank you for sharing that. With this record, it did have a lot of moments that I absolutely loved. Been a very long time Bright Eyes fan, and so it did. I kind of agree with the quote that we kind of mentioned before, Nate, in terms of that it has this spirit of like a live band together in a room, different elements of different records from the band. I was wondering if you might indulge me a little bit. My favorite track on the record, and I'm going to mispronounce it, so I apologize. Bastian Adir? Is it Ada? Adir?
Bastian Ardor, yeah.
And you saw how badly I botched that, so thank you very much. Such a great track.
Yeah, he's an artist from like the 70s, I guess. Yeah.
He sailed out to sea and never came back?
Yeah, he sailed away and never came back. So
yeah.
No one's real sure if it was like a suicide vibe or if it was just, he just went sailing and never came back. But either way, it's like romantic, you know? So
100%. Are you able to talk us through this track that's on the record? It's a brilliant track. It has one of the most Bright Eyes style lines I think I've seen in a while. Where was it? Remember when I was dense, made me paint the fence to work my way into your life. I absolutely loved that line. I was wondering if, just might be able to talk about where that song came from or what inspired it.
Well, that's, a pretty straight up Mark Twain reference. Tom Sawyer, famously made his friends, he convinced his friends, like he had to paint this fence as a chore, and he convinced his friends that it was cool to paint the fence, and so they did it for him. But kind of a joke of it, but that's Mark Twain, who's one of my favorites. But so yeah, I guess that's that line. But yeah, I hadn't known about Bastian Ardor like until like just a few years ago. This friend of ours, this woman Emma Kemp, who's like an author and like professor. Anyway, she like hit me to his story, and I just found it so fascinating that I don't know, just turn into the song, I guess. Like, is that the easiest way to say it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think I was just going to say it's a fantastic song, so thank you very much for sharing that. I'm curious for both of you. I know that there are dates across the last few months of this year, and then full disclosure to people listening, we are recording this ahead of time. As of this morning, or just a few hours ago, you announced quite a lengthy US tour across the first few months of next year. From this record, is there a track that both of you are looking forward to, I guess, debuting live, that you're really excited to see how that's going to play out in the kind of live setting?
Well, I mean, it's always interesting because we haven't had the chance to play any of these songs live yet. So I guess they'll all kind of evolve the way they evolve. I think the kind of more like a little bit more like upbeat ones I think will be fun. Like I like what's that one? The Train Still Run on Time. Mm-hmm. I think that might be fun.
That'll be fun.
Like
I'm looking forward actually, well, the song that came out today for us, the day that we're doing this, Rainbow Overpass. I think that's going to be a fun one to do live. But yeah, I mean, when we even though we went for a real live feel, we somehow still managed to make the songs, if not impossible, a little bit challenging to play live by like doing something to them that makes them so that you can't just be like, we can't do it like exactly how it is because of some stuff we've added to it. But that's kind of always the fun challenge of taking these songs out on the road, is like solving those problems and cracking the code somehow.
I always feel like there's the three of us, like Nate, myself, Mike, and then I think the fourth component of our band has always been like the studio, and like a lot of that like falls into like Michael's bucket, but it's just stuff that like just effects and things that are like sometimes hard to recreate live. I mean, we do our best, but the studio is obviously a self-contained zone. And so to get that to translate in an effective way live can be a challenge,
Of course. Look, I very much understand that, and very excited to see hopefully maybe some Australian dates at some point later next year. I know we saw you last year, so maybe we'll see how we go. Lastly, gentlemen, very quickly want to ask, we usually ask, I guess, what they're currently listening to. Is there anything that's on high rotation for yourselves?
I will tell you my favorite record. I got to show it to you because I don't really know how to say her name, actually. Nate, you can answer before I get back there, but...
Oh man. That's a tricky one. I never have a very good answer for that because I'm always listening to I'm always gravitating towards stuff that is always on. But what about you? Well, we'll come back to that. I gave you that.
Yeah, I know you did.
Okay.
But this is instrumental, or is it going to be backward?
Yeah.
Anyway, this is instrumental piano music, but it's so beautiful. Do you know how to pronounce her name?
No. I'm afraid to even try. But
yeah.
She
want to give like a little background to that, Nate?
I think she was like, she worked at a school. Maybe she was a teacher, but not a music teacher or something like this. But we should find out. I'm sorry.
It's some of the most beautiful like instrumental piano music like I've ever heard. And I just like, I got a record player over here and I just keep flipping it over and over and over every day, like all day. Mm-hmm. I don't really want to listen to anything else.
Absolutely love that. Nate, for yourself.
And I love that too. So I think this was from your birthday in 2019 when you brought this over. Yeah, I won't bore you with any of the the same old shit I'm listening to. It's just like I still listen to
Foo Fighters and
no.
right.
I've been listening to God. Can I even say this? No, not Foo Fighters, but
Nate was in the Red Hot Chili Peppers for like 3 years. That is not a joke. That is real.
I do actually really enjoy.
They're great.
I do if I feel like
we played on our last record. We love the Chili Peppers, but
I did say that. Yes,
and he was a member for a couple of years there.
If I'm feeling nostalgic, I will put on the we have this thing called Sirius Radio. I'm sure you have it over there too. Satellite radio. If I'm feeling nostalgic and want to take a little stroll down memory lane, I'll turn on the Red Hot Chili Peppers Sirius channel, and it's like a lot of live stuff, and I'll be like, that's me. I was playing, or like they play old records and stuff. Anyways, but yeah. I was asking you. We're always up for tips. So,
what's your hottest tip?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you guys would be across this, but the Waxahachie record, Katie Crutchfield, brilliant record this year, and the new Bright Eyes record, of course, but that's not out yet while we're speaking. So those two.
Yeah, no, I love Katie, all of her records, and the new one is great. I think like St. Cloud is like one of like the last one, like one of my favorite records of the last 10 years. And we got to do some shows with her when that record came out. So that was pretty special.
That's awesome. Yeah. Gentlemen, Nate and Conor, again, this Bright Eyes record is fantastic. 5 Dice, all threes. It is going to be out now when people are listening to this episode. But thank you both very much for coming onto the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
you for having
you.
us.
Yeah, thanks so much.